Good evening, everybody. Time for another Brick Books live chat. Once again, I am your host, Jim. We are also here with Shane, and we're here with one of the most exciting guests I've been wanting to talk to in a while. He's a very thoughtful, very knowledgeable person who contributes to our Facebook group. So if you're not on the Facebook group, you're missing out. Caleb, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
So listen, as I mentioned earlier, which wasn't too long ago before we went live, whenever I found out that Shane asked you to join us tonight, I was doing jumping jacks. And the reason why I was doing jumping jacks is because whenever you talk, I'm sorry, there's a little feedback.
Yeah, hold on one sec. I have it live on my phone too, in case my internet.
Just turn the volume down on your phone, Caleb, and it'll be good. Yep.
There we go.
There you go.
Is that better?
Yep.
Cool.
So whenever I see you post something on the Facebook group, like I make sure I read everything that you're saying. And something that I enjoy, and I think you do this maybe once every 4 weeks or once every 6 weeks, is there will be two young up and coming resellers that will start chatting on the Facebook group. And then it's like a Vietnam War movie where these two people come off boot camp and they're just talking about what's going to happen. And then they cut to some old timer Nick Nolte dude who flicks a cigarette butt. And he's like, well, kids, let me tell you, it's not that easy and it's not the way you think it is. And then you go over a very helpful, lengthy explanation as to why. And so I always enjoy whenever you post something. I think it's not just a treat for me, it's a treat for the whole Facebook group. So I was hoping maybe you could, just give a little bit about your background and how long you've been doing Lego and some of the successes that you've had.
Well, I'm about 16 years into it. Necessity started it, like most. Picking and selling other things amongst, flea markets, garage sales, whatnot. Long time ago. I was working 2 jobs, trying to, 2 new kids, struggling. I'm in California. eBay was pretty much, that was it. That's how it started. And you try to focus on something, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as you're good at it, then you stick with it. And like I said, at the time, it was pretty much just eBay and Craigslist. So that's pretty much, about 16 years ago, I was working two day job, or a day job and a swing shift. And then picking around vintage toys, collectibles, and, Lego came into play, just a little here and there. Of course, it evolved. And then basically, I wanted to get out of my corporate job. That's it. I wanted out. And I basically came up with a plan and started honing on one thing. And I just happened to pick Lego. At the time, back then, you could find stuff just for days, used product for days. Sort it down, just constant flips on eBay, flip. Once I came up with a plan, it was kind of like I did that for about 2 years. And then I finally took the big leap and actually rented a little space and worked in there for 2 years on Saturday and Sundays. At first, it was just a storage place where I could operate eBay, whatnot, store everything. And then actually, I started advertising it, open on the weekends. Back then you just throw some like Craigslist ads, Marketplace didn't exist. So it kind of evolved. And then it was really like, I did that for about 2 years. I ended up quitting my second job. So I had my regular day job, did that for about 2 years, open on the weekends. And then got to a point where I was comfortable enough telling my wife and everything, family, friends, look, I'm quitting my job. I think based on the last 2 years of just doing pretty much just Lego on the weekends in this little shop, selling some to the public. I think I'm comfortable. I think I was doing like 20, 30,000, gross, but on the weekends, and I was probably making, 50, 60,000 a year at my day job. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I gave a 6-week notice to my job, signed a lease, a nice downtown location. And that was a 3-year lease, and just went for it, quit my job. Oh my God. I was just like knots in my stomach, benefits. I had stocks and, I was just dying. Oh my God, what did I do? And they were like, you can come back if you want. And I was like, no. So anyway, grand opening day was just like a line down the street, and we killed it. Grand opening was like, I don't know what it was, like $7,000 on our grand opening day, and I was like, that's it. That's it. We're gonna do it. So anyway, sum it all up, I just organically grew it. So after that 3-year lease was coming up, I moved into a little bit down the street, a little bit bigger store, square feet. That actually, that was after 3 years. It was another 3-year lease. And at that point, it was a bigger square foot, but it actually had like an office room and a couple of back storage rooms. That's about when I got into investing. Because mostly the store, a lot of mostly used stuff, some used sets, minifigures. That's when I started realizing there's a whole world, the Lego world, the community, the AFOL groups, the conventions. Started going to the conventions, 2 or 3 a year by then we were going to. A couple of small toy shows too. And that is all organic. So that 3-year lease came up, actually moved to a smaller place. So those 2 3-year leases, I was riding the wave hard. You know what I mean? I had press articles, front pages in the papers, and all kinds of stuff, just riding that out. And, I was kind of thinking, don't forget why you started this, to have more time with your family. I was wanting to get rich, make a ton of money. And at that point, I actually opened a second store in Los Angeles. And my brother-in-law lives down there. I made numerous trips down. We had a lease. We signed it. It was going. I ended up that about 6-7 months into that for several other reasons, but I pulled that back, cut my losses, started getting into more investing. I moved to a smaller store at that point. Once I was at my peak, riding my peak out, those peak years were probably, 360,000 a year gross. Just continuing going. And I thought, well, there might be a bubble, something might happen. Plus, I was trying to humble myself, pull myself back. So anyway, I signed a 1-year lease. That was on my 3-year lease. Then I moved to another store. 1-year lease was a little bit smaller, and started getting into more investing, had back storage rooms. Started hitting shows real heavy, and started realizing through the show circuit, a lot of the shows we attended were great, but I was kind of thinking I want to do my own. So about that time, about 7 years into it, I just took another big leap. It was like initial, it was like $24,000 investment or something, rented a place, put the deposit down, permitting, working with the city, the fire, had it all dialed in. Then it's like, okay, now what? How do I get people? So yeah, started the first show we did was, I just hope, if 1,000 people come, that's great. It'll be a break even. Do that for a few years, prove the concept. Even if it's a little bit of a loss, we'll monetize it down the road. We just try to grow it. So then, we started doing shows, and I have more fun doing shows. At that point, kind of getting a little burnt out on the store, 7, 8 years into it. Shows started taking off. First year I think was like, 2,500 people showed up, and we were hoping for 1,000. So I was riding that wave for a bit. It was easier, quicker, quicker cash. It was fun. We got our whole family involved for the show, family, friends. So yeah, there's so much in between. At that point, I just kept renewing that 1-year lease that I had, which put me to about 10 years. Well, 2 of the leases I had, when you move in, you get 3 months free rent, 4 months free rent to build it out. So technically I did the store for about 10 years, 5 months, something like that. So anyway, about year 9, the shows were starting to take off. Investing was great. By then I was, eBay is screwed up. So I am on multiple platforms, spreading out, pivoting. And then I started thinking, I got another year on the store, and we started thinking about the kids are almost done with school. I think maybe I'm thinking about exiting the store and just doing the other things, back to the basics, investing. And during this, 10, 12 year period, a lot changed in the whole Lego world. You'd see it all. You see, different bubbles, different things come to play. But through it all, though, the graph is always going up, though. It's doing its thing. You ride out certain times. So we got to a point. We said, well, let's list our house. If it sells for this crazy number, then we'll buy something, maybe move to another county, whatnot. So we did all that. It all worked out. We made a killing on our house, moved closer to my wife's parents, and I wanted a place where I could just do online, invest more, just strictly investing. To me, I don't know. I always get back to, old school. I don't know. I guess I'm an old school investor because now I started joining groups like yours and see all the other investors out there. Before that, it's just kind of me and a group of friends I know that also do it. But now I see there's a lot of new investors, and the investing is different. I'm not used to that. I'm stubborn old investor, and to me, it's you buy a bunch of stuff. You save it for a long time, and the whole flipping world, I'm getting used to. I'm like, well, I guess I'm stubborn. Right? I'm like, I guess I was doing that because that's what my store is, just constantly flipping in a retail environment. And anyway, that kind of puts me to where I'm at now. I've been here about 15 months. Actually ended up selling part of my store, not my brand or whatever, but some of my assets, and included in that was some consulting for someone who was taking off with a whole online thing. That put me to our property here. We purchased 5 acres with 2 homes and multiple buildings. And the last 6 months before my lease ended, I was commuting the last 6 months. My lease wasn't ending till actually March 2020, right when the pandemic hit. That was my last month.
Wow.
So I commuted. Yeah, no, it worked out so perfect. March 2020, it was up. And, I liquidated just for days and ended up here. And I literally, when I built this building out right here, my shop, it was already here. I insulated it, sheetrocked it, did some other stuff. Brought all my shelving from my store and tricked it all out as best I could. And basically, yeah, I literally had 70 sets 15 months ago. Built it out. I had a little rack with some sets on it and said, okay, here we go. But I had a bunch of money. We bought this property. I built a barn for my wife and daughter for their horses. I tried to buy everything I needed. And I'll tell you one thing is I'm in California, first of all. A lot of money really doesn't really go that far. So I was like, okay, quick, I need to get back into the investing game quick. Basically, like 7 months went by and I hadn't really done anything. I was just relaxing after 10, 12, years, whatever. And then finally, I found you got your page, a few others, started just scrolling, spent a month just scrolling, getting back into the research. And then I always try to play smart. Even if you have a bunch of money, I'm not just going to go buy, 3,000 sets, 4,000 sets. So I just slowly started getting back into it, basically where I'm at now. Long story short, sorry.
That's awesome, man. I mean, that's one heck of a story. And that's one heck of a brief story. I'm from what I've picked up on some of your comments, there's other pieces too that are
so
just
many, yeah.
extraordinary. Some of the stuff you've said, I'm like, man, like it not only, and correct me if I'm wrong, not only are you an extraordinarily successful person when it comes to selling Lego, but you are kind of the go-to when somebody in your, whether it's region or maybe even the state or neighboring states,
pretty much, yeah.
Whenever somebody needs some plastic bricks, they knock on your door, right?
Yeah. I mean, the website, I'll be honest, if anyone's checked it, I haven't touched it in 15 months since I just said I was done kind of with everything. A lot of the social media, but plus the pandemic hit, and I've just been buying boxes, But yeah, the website I have to update here soon because we have a show coming up too, and a lot of changes. But the website still brings me, hits weekly, just donations. I get donations. I get hey, I'm over here and I drive 3 hours to go to make a house call, maybe buy, maybe not. I turn down 9 out of 10, but because I try to buy now, because I can buy how I want, really. So you can turn down and you just buy the grandest of collections only, and so basically, I mean, the assets, yes, they're going to linger for a long time. I just need to get back and keep them going. But I mean, it's been great. I've picked up a few big collections just sitting around here, and it gets kind of frustrating because when you buy used stuff, and you end up buying truck and trailer load here and there, it's like, still I have a property with buildings, but it's like I'm trying to work in my shop and store sets, and then I dump this huge collection in here and I just sit and do nothing because it's overwhelming.
Right.
It's just too much. And so that's then I started just saying, hey, let me reach out. I know so many people. Then I just started flipping them. Which is a lot of that I've been picking up off your channel. Like I said, the flippers, I'm like, let me just flip a few of these. My wife's like, no, you could get 40 grand out of that. I'm just going to flip it for 20, just, you know what I mean? I got too much to do and actually so much to do yet. I mean, now I'm pretty much, I've set myself up. The system I have now, and with what I brought with me, a lot of used stuff. My brick link, my brick link and my eBay, the used parts business, just that daily shipping orders, just it pays for my life, my bills, and it's a couple hours a day. If you average it out, sometimes I'll grind 20 hours, 30 hours in a week, but it still beats working 50, 60 hours, with a boss and reports. And I hated that. But yeah, basically, that's where I'm at now. I've been flipping quite a few collections and just riding it out.
I just have so many questions. It's such a great
I'll try
story.
to slow down here.
No, dude, please don't. Please don't. Caleb, so I guess the first thing for me is can you talk us a little bit more through what it was like to run the store, right? What was it like to be in there? on a daily? Because I know that that's something that a lot of our viewers are super interested in, and that's a pipe dream for a lot of people, right? To run a store that's focused on Lego. So what would a day in the life look like? Were you buying from the store as well? Were people bringing stuff in, selling it to you?
You start off like kind of most people. You do the research and you find the other stores, and I know most other store owners in the whole U.S. and we network but it's a grind, and I always tell people it really depends on what type of person you are. I left a 50, 60 hour a week job. So I just told myself, look, I'm doing this. I'm not going to hire people. I mean, I never hired anyone. Wow. So you do start out like, buy, sell, trade, that whole, typical thing. I found out quick that, trading doesn't work. It's just, let's just narrow it down here and be real, buy, sell. But trade, and it's kind of like, it's really unrealistic. You end up, moms and kids come in and want to trade a little set. I mean, so anyway, I cut that right out. It's buy or sell. I mean, it's black or white, and so basically it's same thing. Stuff comes in all the time. I mean, I would imagine it's different in every geography. I'm in Sonoma County, where my store is from, which piggybacks Marin County, San Francisco, the wine country. We have LucasArts, Lucasfilm, the Pixars, Google. They're all right there in my backyard, so it's pretty heavy area. So, I mean, I basically, it was a grind for over 10 years in that store. I'd show up 2 hours before I open to list and ship, open up, work 8 in the store, with a smile on your face, buying, selling, flipping. And then, I mean, you end up, you get huge collections just walk in sometimes, and they're like, oh, we've known you forever. Our kids are grown, they're done. So, here, the off, huge collection on you. We love what you do for the community here. Donate stuff. You start getting real picky and choosy. You're starting to hone in. You can buy 1 out of 10 collections that, you spend $300 on a collection that'll get you 3,000-4,000. Like the formula of most stores, you buy a used collection, you go through it just really quick, and you pull out, 200-300 figures. You can stock those. You can throw some on eBay, Bricklink. You spread them out real quick and use that whole formula. But I got a pretty heavy formula down after all those years of just with used product. A lot of people would contact me with really big vintage collections. I would call them vintage, not retired sets like we call them now. People would contact me, hey, I'm in San Francisco. I've got a room full. I've been buying and kind of hoarding new sets for 20, 30 years. So I bought in lots of those that are just great. That's when I first got started on Amazon. I'd buy a collection, big collections for 10, 15, 20,000. Get a friend, rent a U-Haul, go pick it up, drive 4 hours, come back, unload, 500 sets right there, boom, in the store that have stickers on, price tags on them from, that are like $1.99 from Sears, classic space sets, that whole thing. And that's when I started finding, you look them up on Amazon and it's like, whoa, these kind of sets, this little $2 set is, 300 on Amazon. So I back then I just opened an account and just started selling. So now I guess it's different. I'm glad I get to keep my account open and still use it. But yeah, I mean, there's I could go on and on about every question, I guess, but
no, that's great. Like one thing that I was kind of wondering about is that process for the used parts, because it does seem like it's something that would be time consuming. And if you're trying to deal with customers,
yes.
you said you didn't hire anyone, right? So you're trying to do
Yes.
the buying, the selling, the running of the store, and also sorting through bins and bins of stuff coming in. It sounds like
retail's tough. I mean, retail, any brick and mortar retail is tough. I mean, 3-4 months in the summer, and it's pretty much every brick and mortar, 90% of them. 3-4 months in the summer, you're crazy busy. 6 weeks only is basically the Christmas season. So the 6 weeks, I wouldn't call it winter, you just call it Christmas season. 6 weeks at Christmas, you're busy. Spring's dead. I mean, a little bit after Christmas. January is usually pretty busy in retail because everyone gets money for Christmas, wants what they didn't get, gets gift certificates, gift cards, whatnot. But once February hits through April, it's after Christmas, but it's also tax time. So it's dead. So you kind of adapt, and I adapted my slow time. The couple months in spring, we just sort like mad, list like crazy, ride out all those, reap the rewards through the summer, which it's kind of like the perfect storm. When you're in a retail store, you've listed everything in the spring. So when you hit summer, I mean, every marketplace you're on online is just selling. You're just shipping orders, but also your store is slammed every day. So it's kind of that perfect storm where the summer you're just cranking. You're just basically stuffing money in bins type of thing. And then the summer, you usually hit 2 or 3 big shows in the summer too.
Right.
So I guess back to that, to answer some of your question, over time, basically we always had a farm, and my wife kind of did a small farm business with my daughter, and in the horse type of stuff. So we also do taxes on a farm business and have for about 15 years. Of course, it's a loss every year and always has been. I mean, we've had to claim a few gains. Otherwise, you're considered a hobby. So anyway, they've always had that thing. So anyway, we got to a point where I just said, quit it. Just do it for pleasure. So she would come in and cover me a few days here and there. And at the time, knew nothing. I mean, she knew about Lego a little bit, but, not really about the store. But she would just come in and ring people up, Mm-hmm. So she would cover me. I'd take off for the weekend, probably a lot of times with my son. We'd go do a 2-3 day show. So anyway, you do a few of those in the summer as well. And, those are great. You can have 3-4 months straight in the summer where you're making 50, 70,000 a month. Boom, boom, boom. Then the fall kind of dips down again. Kids go back to school. Retail, the economy kind of slows down. No more vacationing, whatnot. Economy kind of trickles down. But then you get ready for Christmas. So in that time, you just list again. Sort and list. So it's kind of you evolve and kind of figure out a formula, a good formula. I figured that out. It took a while, but figured that out.
Wow.
All right. Shane's not saying anything. I'm going to dive in with some questions. So, let me know give me some feedback on what I'm about to say. It seems like that your business is multifaceted. Okay, you're
very much so. Yeah.
That's an understatement. Multifaceted is an understatement. You have Bricklink. And I don't know if you're doing all of these pieces now, but you have in the past. So you're doing Bricklink. You're having a brick and mortar store. You are selling business to business. Is that correct? Yes,
I actually have 2 toy stores I wholesale to. One's been closed. Well, they're reopening kind of as we speak, but they were closed for about 10 months straight. So I've been feeding one. a bigger toy store. Actually, these are friends of mine, which I've accumulated these, other business owners and throughout the years. And so yeah, mainly feed them minifigures. I brought several kiosk displays that I saved from my store and put one identical one in each of these stores. One's a large toy store, kind of like, I'd say, a smaller Toys R Us. And one is every town has them, is your typical vintage and comic collectible store. So that one I feed more, a little bit more higher end, niche minifigures, whatnot, versus the toy store. I focus more on lower end, lower dollar, just a lot of quick turns, $4 to $8 figures pretty much in that store, which I do. The average sell price in that store is about $6 a figure. I get a monthly check. I sell about 1,000 figures a month in that store. The other one was a little bit higher margin, less figures, but it averaged about the same, So yeah, I have two stores anyway that I'm currently selling into, which I started that right when I closed my store, which is right when the pandemic hit. So I have plans, and we're going to soon, to start selling into those a little more broader range of stuff. The toy store they have a Lego area, of course, like most small Toys R Us stores. They sell kits. They have a, account with Lego, which I know the owner of that store. So other perks can come along with some of those things. I also have multiple, the chain Bricks and Minifigs. I don't know if you've heard of them, but kind of like the store I had, which I know the owners, they're up here in Oregon and Washington. They franchise their stores, and they have, 15, 20. So there's 3 or 4 of those here in the Bay Area where I'm from, Northern California. San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley is basically where I'm from, north of there. But so there's 3 or 4 stores down in that area, which I started wholesaling lots of just bulk used Lego, because I buy it like by the pallet. I can, about 500 pounds on a pallet. So anyway, since I closed my store and I started more trying to buy sets, more investing, I brought a bunch of bulk used Lego with me when I closed the store to keep my Bricklink business going. But then I've since bought quite a bit more, and big collections that are used collections of mainly like sets and stuff. So anyway, long story short, I've been wholesaling. I know the owner of Bricks and Minifigs franchise in the Bay Area. He actually owns 2 stores down there in the East Bay by Oakland, kind of by the Oakland area. And I've been, the last couple collections I got, the smaller ones, some I posted on your page that were pretty big, $20,000 one, that was great. But $5,000, $10,000 collections I take down there, load into their back storeroom, and I say, look, 8,000. And of course, the game, he says, oh no, 3. And I say, well, 6. And, we play the dance. And then I already have a number in my head. I say, how about, this is what I just did last time. I said, how about 5,000 in trade? It's better for you, because he buys he buys sets direct from Lego, and depending on the theme, it's actually only 20 to 35% margin when you buy sets direct from Lego, and like 70% they choose the sets for you. So that can be City and Shima. And so
can we just pause?
And
can we just pause and repeat what you just said? And the reason why
basically, if you have a wholesale account, I had for a few years as well the same type of account. So Star Wars, you're going to get 20% direct from Lego, believe it or not. That's it. unless you have some strong co-op relationship, of course, like an Amazon or something, your typical brick and mortar account with Lego is going to get like 20% off on Star Wars, which is crap. But you got to understand, most small brick and mortar stores retail 10 to 20% over MSRP. You know, a lot of bigger stores do it sometimes too. You know, even some websites, you know, Zavvi, for example, they'll sell new sets at 20% off and then say, hey, I got a flash sale over here for 40% off a cheer-in or whatever. You know, they balance it out. Yeah. But anyways, Star Wars typically 20% off, where you're going to get other themes at 25, 30, 35. They'll give you, they pick will be heavier, like 35, sometimes more with like promotional deal or something, but that's pretty much it. So anyway, you wanted me to back up to that. That's pretty much the gist of what most small mom and pop toy stores get, 20 to 35 off. I mean, for a while in my store,
oh, do we have an interruption? Caleb, are you there? That is just mind-blowing stuff. I just had a feeling that, you know, with like, I know that other distributors, you're talking 20 to 35, but I thought that Lego Direct would be a little higher than that.
Well, and the reason why I had Caleb, you know, talk about that a little bit more is because occasionally there will be somebody that will say, hey, I just want to go ahead and open up a Lego account and it's going to be all pie in the sky and all that good stuff. And listen, you know, I love where you're going, but you're going towards a bunch of roadblocks. And so, you know, there's people that I've talked to during Patreon calls. They're like, I just don't like retail arbitrage. I don't like going store to store. And I'm like, I get it. Like I don't like going and doing that stuff either. I mean, sometimes if you have a system, you can make a killing in a weekend. But, you know, online arbitrage, you're kind of, if you're able to get the quantity you want at the discount that you almost want, I mean, it's kind of worth doing it online with online arbitrage.
Yeah. And I also want to kind of point out something else he just said right there, which is Lego are choosing what to give to some of these retailers, right? They're basically setting the stock expectations for the retailers. So, you know, if you think about that, right, all the analysis that we do when we're investing goes out the window, because now you can't pick the winners. You're stuck with paying for things that you know are maybe not the best investment bets. Maybe you can sell them in a brick and mortar at retail price and make the 20% back or whatever, but you're not probably going to hold it for long term. And obviously you can't nitpick or specifically pick the things that are about to retire. So you'll have stuff coming that are new and sitting on the shelf for longer. So for an investor, it sounds like, you know, some of those roadblocks are almost game changing as to why you'd even want to go that direction. Caleb, you're back.
Oh, I'm back. Yeah, it said I was back for a while, but there, yeah, I hear you.
Good. Yeah, we were just kind of marveling over some of that information you just gave us there. Particularly, like I was just talking about the fact that they choose what to send some of these toy stores.
Yeah.
You know, that, like, for an investment standpoint, that's damaging.
Some of my initial orders, I was so excited when I got an account with Lego. Had a store, you know, it's like, oh my God, I was so, I thought I was going to be getting, you know, amazing deals, but, you know, if it's an initial, I mean, they're going to send you, you know, obviously a big list, a big document, and they're going to, I forget the exact breakdown, but it's more than 50% of the sets they're pushing, or they're slow movers or whatever, or, you know, they're late. If Chima just came out, they're going to be pushing, you know, 25% of what you got to pick from their Chima list. You just have to. But I mean, at the time, Chima's out. I have a store. You don't really know. And we know now that Chima's wasn't that, great. But I mean, with Lego, you never know. Some of the worst themes have done the greatest. But anyway, there is kind of I called on the reps for a long time. They came and visited my store. For the longest time, they would come into my store, the local reps, and say, "Hey, we really want to get you an account. However, you're an only Lego store." Their policy at that time, prior to me getting an account for a long time, their arm was twisted by companies like Toys R Us, which now doesn't exist, and they had to pivot and start selling to people like us. But yeah, the reps would come by and they would tell me, look, if you had other toys on your shelf, and I'm like, then we could open you an account, because it's a competing, you're a toy store, but if you're just Lego, we don't really know about you guys yet. This is kind of weird to us. Your stores are kind of popping up now, and we don't cater to you. But then within a few years, a lot of changes happened. They lost Toys R Us. They lost their brick and mortar in the U.S. Overnight, they were just devastated. They had to pivot quick. They started reaching out to all the little mom and pop stores, saying, "Want to open you?" Reps would start coming by everywhere. And then, I think I had an account for 2 years. Funny thing is, when I had an account and I was buying wholesale for Lego, I was still buying on Amazon and stuff, like UCS sets, because you literally don't get a discount from Lego on a UCS set if you're a brick and mortar store. That's why you don't see those, or haven't, should I say, for the past many years. Or at the time I was doing it, even their exclusives, most of them you couldn't buy. That's why now I make comments on your site, and I'm like, hey, to me, it's like I see exclusives at Target. Well, back when I had a store, those weren't even sold to stores. They were only shop at home. Then Amazon started leeching in, twisting their arm. But yeah, I mean, a lot's changed.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there's so much to it. And this question I just pulled up from Clint in the chat as well kind of alludes to some of the things you're just talking about the requirements to sell Lego. So, and I had heard that one before about distributors needing, and not just Lego Direct, but other distributors needing brick and mortars to sell other toys. And were there any other restrictions that you can remember, Caleb, in terms of allowing
as far as I know where we're at now, there's almost none. I mean, if you're a toy store, I should say, you don't want to be selling weird paraphernalia, whatnot. If you're a toy store, I think a lot has changed, really. I think they're reaching out and just taking any market share they can. I think at this point, I mean, to answer that question, I don't really think there are as many requirements. I mean, to sell their product, they have requirements like, a minimum order. They have initial purchase amount. And I think it's each quarter. They have to meet their sales numbers. Their salesmen feed you information because you're on their route. You're their vendor. They're your rep. So every quarter they want you to make like a $10,000 purchase, and of course the rep goes to your store and says, hey, you need to bump up your Chima. They sell you on things, but as far as requirements, I mean, when I had my store initially, there were a million of them, and it was like an Amazon. Lego was like an Amazon. I mean, you couldn't even get ungated wasn't a thing. You had to be, a big chain, or pretty much that was it. I think their vision's changed. They've pivoted. For a long time, I know they were on the Toys R Us chain, riding that out. That was a gravy train for them. That collapsed. I know after that, they wanted more of their official Lego stores, which they were running with that. I know as of a year and a half ago, they had huge plans to roll out more stores all over the U.S. COVID hit. I think they pivoted again, honestly. I know they're opening more, but I think they scaled that back again because COVID kind of made everyone pivot and make money elsewhere, and they're riding that pivot. As far as requirements, I mean, you're going to have to make an initial purchase. I don't know exactly what it is now. 20, 30 grand initial order, which for some of us, it's not that much money, but I mean, a lot of the good stuff you're just not going to get from them, at a discount.
Yeah, and one thing I was wondering about is like when you had your store, obviously your store was mostly like you were a reseller, right? You were buying stuff initially from other people and selling them on, as opposed to being a traditional retailer, right? Buying from wholesalers.
Yeah. My initial formula kind of going into opening a store was that, I want it to be a channel. I wanted it to be a channel to get me stuff. That's how I could make more money. So if people brought stuff in, big collections, whatnot, that I could buy, I'm pushing it right out the back door on eBay. That's how initially was when it was pretty much just eBay. So most of the stuff would come in. I would keep 10% on in my store and move 90% out the back, right out the back door on eBay. And that formula, can work great. I actually know a lot of people that have these types of stores now that don't sell online. They think any brick and mortar store is the all end of it, the retail of it. That formula in this day and age won't pay the bills, especially in your slow time. You have to sell online or have your own website. So yeah, I mean.
But did that reseller aspect of your business not bother Lego when it came to opening the account with them?
Okay, so a lot of phases I've gone through having that store. At one point they wouldn't sell to me. A couple of years I had an account and they loved me and had reps coming by, wanted me to buy. I ended up towards the end when I wasn't really buying as much from them anymore anyway, because I wasn't happy with what I was getting from them. I was still buying, like I said, a lot on Amazon. Exactly like you and I and a lot of people in this group are today. Many, many years ago, I was buying, the deals on Amazon, stacking points, cards, whatever. Consistently buying at 30% off. So somewhere around that time is a lot of people posting on your on the Facebook group about getting banned, limits, and all this stuff. At that time, oh man, I wrote it out for a long time. I probably had 4 or 5 accounts on Lego because they kept canceling orders. That's how it started with. My bands would start with canceling orders. They had limits back then that I'd see change a lot. Like you see the iconic chess set, it's sometimes limit 99. A lot of times it was like that. You could buy a lot of sets like whatever. Exclusives would be like the limits only. But I bought with them. I had an account in my mom's name. Sets would go to her house. My wife's name, multiple cards, whatnot. And, I mean, all of a sudden one day, I mean, my account, my account like froze. My wholesale account. You get terms with them. You can get extra 2%. Built 90-day term, 2% net 90, whatever. And I got a bill, and then I couldn't get an order through to them. My rep said something was up. A lot of orders were getting canceled on my Shop at Home accounts because I also was buying from Shop at Home as the Brick Hut for many years while I had a wholesale account. I was buying UCS sets, exclusives, getting gifts, yada, yada. Because I could put them on my shelf still. Just, it would come in. You could put a set on your shelf, mark it up 20%, put a gift with purchase on there at $35, and you're doing good. Just constantly doing that. But anyway, all of a sudden one day, all my accounts, all the orders got canceled. And I went into my main one, like my brick hut one that I had for years, and I just looked at my thing back then. I mean, my orders were like the order pages, and it was just like, I think I had, it was lots. Probably 30 orders were like on one account open. And they were just cancel. And none of them were like their limits. They were just all canceled. It started with phone calls. You just get reps. No one really knows anything. Just a big runaround. I remember finding out through my sales rep who came by. I still got no answers from Lego. Back then there were forums more than Facebook pages, and I go on some forums and I was like, oh shit, I got banned. All my accounts are locked up, whatever. Basically that's kind of how I realized. I didn't know really at the time. I don't think I was calling it banned. I was just thinking at the time, Lego doesn't cater to these types of businesses doing these types of things. They just closed my accounts. That's kind of what now, I see it all over, and I guess it's called being banned. Because that went on every now and then. I think maybe 6 months had passed, whatever. I call in again. Probably 30, 40 phone calls. I think I just gave up. The funny thing is I used to be able to still go in store as people talk on your page today. I could still go in store and buy sets. There's still no communication, just like they do today. There's still no communication. So I'd make trips to stores. At the time, we only had one in San Jose, which is the East Bay area. So it's still, 3 hours away. So you don't do it that often. Since then, we now have a San Francisco store, Sacramento store. There's like 4 within a 2 hour radius. But anyway, so many things change always, and you just got to find the loopholes and the pivots. And
yeah.
Well, it seems like over the decades, Lego has become very, they don't know what they want, because whenever Toys R Us, before Toys R Us, everybody was getting, the gate was locked. You couldn't get in.
Pretty much.
And then, hey, buddy, how's it going? Sure. You want to buy some Legos because the number one distributor, Toys R Us, is out of commission. And there were other instances before that too. And I could be wrong.
There's some instances that came up that, long predate us. Way back, I know when they made like Samsonite block kits, 60s, 70s. I've heard stories, and today I listen to, I interpret those stories that, oh my gosh, they were regionally pivoting. They lost distribution and funneled all this stuff into Canada at one point. And so, you're absolutely correct. I think we've got more changes coming. It's constant.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a ton of changes. Who knows what they're going to put out, and then eventually the law of averages. They're going to put something out, and everybody's going to be like, oh yeah, this is great, and then who knows? Toys R Us may come back, and then they're going to slam the door again, and it's just this back and forth, and I don't necessarily like buying Legos from Amazon. It has its benefits, and all there's benefits buying it from other places too. But I'm like, that's reliable. Buying Lego from Amazon is like Johnny Cash. It's slow and steady,
so consistent. Yeah.
Yep, you get what you want.
You can almost just wait. Sure, some of it's a guessing game, but like 20% of those kits you're after in quarter 4, whatever, they're going to be 20% off. Well, a lot of them are all year, but certain ones you're looking for, they're, you'll eventually find 90% of what you're looking for at least 20% off. Right. I think the game changed really when Amazon, came into play, and all of a sudden they just started. It seemed like overnight, all of a sudden they just started carrying everything and discounting everything, and everyone was like, "What the heck? Shop at home." all of a sudden the same sets just released, out the gate, a lot of them were 20% off. How is that even possible? It changed the game for a lot of resellers. It changed the Bricklink game immensely. I mean, Bricklink started exploding when, the part out people. I mean, prior to that, Bricklink was, families selling just their collection of used parts. I mean, it grew basically out of that. Just, it was Lego lover group that, a lot of them were just mock builders, went to conventions, were looking for used parts. Then it became, supplying missing pieces. Then it became a full business. It just blew up overnight into people going, wow, I can buy this at 20% off. All these people on this site right here just want the parts. That's it. I mean, it evolved from there to the, more and more people selling sets on Bricklink. Investors were like, wait a minute. And I think a lot of that came into play when the kind of eBay collapse started happening, like 6-7 years ago, when they just gutted their whole system and changed their algorithms. They went, straight to just money making. It hurt a lot of right then. I spread out quick right then.
So let's talk real quick about buying sets. And when I say buying sets, you sourcing sets. So I've said this in the past. I'll see some people either on a forum or a Facebook group, and they're like, hey, I went and I picked up 100 Minecraft sets at all my Walmarts for like $9. Retail price is $20, right? So whenever there are times I'm like, all right, let me go on Craigslist, let me see what's out there. and
that's so time consuming.
And I used to sell cars, and when people would come in to trade in their car while we're appraising it, it takes like 20 minutes. They would go out to the car lot and look at the car that they're trying to trade in and expect top dollar. And so how do you negotiate large buys? Well, first, I guess, what specifically do you look for? And, does the price ever, make you want to not contact that seller? Or are you like, okay, this person clearly has no idea what he's asking for. I think I could get him lower.
Yeah, what you just touched on, of course, negotiating, but that depends, what type of, buys. I have those kinds of buys. I know before right when we were getting cut off, I was explaining that I take large used collections and I can take them to a bricks and minifigs or a store that has accounts with Lego, and I could trade my used product for new in box sets. If they happen to need more, used bulk or used sets, whatever, those stores are usually always buying. So if you ever get any used stuff, most people feel it's daunting, too much work. Go get it, buy it, take it right to your local store. Most regions have them, and trade it. Just trade it off. But anyway, negotiating with those, recently I've come up with, I tried to think in my head like a whole new business plan, a whole structure, kind of a whole new formula on the new in box, like investing in my sets type of thing, where I've scaled it all down. I'll say, look, I'm going to take, $50,000 a year for the first 2 years, and I'm just going to infuse that and sell nothing. Not a single set. I'm gonna kind of live off of what I have, used stuff, few older sets. I'm gonna infuse that in. I'm gonna go for 8 years straight, and then, on year 3, I'm gonna sell 25% of year 1, and then year 4, I'm gonna sell 25% of year 2. Those 25% will get me the $50,000 to buy more sets. And so that's kind of, I'm on this path now of doing that. So that's kind of made me reevaluate if I just take $50,000 and what I'm going to spend it on. So I've gone way more broad, limited everything back, a lot more picky and choosy. Most things I'll buy like 10, 5, 10, 15, or 20, based on size and obviously dollar amount. Of course, every now and then you got to pay attention to everything and, pivot and grab 50 of those real quick because they're going to be hot or, as far as buying, I've kind of just like completely changed what I've done the last like 15, 20 years, which was mainly evolved from having a store, and it's just buy anything you come across that's 30 to 50% off. And if you find anything that's 50, 60 plus percent off, just flip it right away because at a store too, just flip it and move on. But, the 3-4 years ago when I started changing that on the tail end of my store, I kind of started to realize that I was always caught in the flip, and that if I didn't have more of a at least a couple year exit plan, by the time I exited, I was still just going to be flipping to survive. So I had to come up with some kind of formula or strategy to, in my case was good because I can constantly flip used stuff for really high margins to kind of pay for my life and my living, like my full-time job. And I'm able to move some of that into just investing in sets. There's multiple parts I have going on right now. And obviously the used stuff I can still go through and feed brick and mortar stores minifigures to get more constant revenue to pay bills. But as far as, buying, I mean, a lot of the stuff, is the same as you guys and everything else that what I do now. I mean, I just try to make smart picks. I actually I don't have any kind of camel. I mean, there's a lot of it. That's all new to me. I mean, I just have like, I guess, experience and intuition. Having a store. I mean, I know what so many different types of customers come in that want, and I've always wanted. I know that there's always those Minecraft moms, and and there's always the Star Wars customers. It's just super broad over here. There's always certain things I know I can just sell great online, different channels. And then, of course, the experience, too, comes in from doing it for so many years. I mean, I could look at a set and just look at it and sum it right up. I can go, oh, those figures are going to pay for it, and the parts are going to be worth, double right away. So I'm going to grab a ton of those because, if I don't make 200-300% return on the set, I'll just, tear it up and part it out.
And you do part outs as well, Caleb? New pieces?
Well, I typically, most of my Bricklink business, I don't part out. I do have some part out inventory in there now, and I have parted out. I will, I'm sure, part out a lot more in the future. The main part outs I've done, I mean, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years ago, the 99-cent store had Dimensions packs when those were being canceled by Lego. A lot of the waves of them were flops. They were just canning the whole line. On the whole West Coast here of just the United States, the 99-cent store corporate won the bid on however many units, and they fed them all to their West Coast stores. There was a few stores that were over in like Arizona, a few other states, but mainly on the West Coast. They showed up at the 99-cent stores, and a lot of investors went nuts.
Yeah.
I got wind of it late. I had my store. I think I had 3 stores near me within like 50 miles. I went and cleaned those out. I think I ended up with like 3,500 of them. Of course, I'm such a stickler. I didn't want to pay tax on 99 cents each. I mean, no way. I fought that all the way, but I got finally. I didn't pay tax on them. I was happy about that. And then a second wave hit the 99-cent store about 8 months later. They caught on, and we're selling them for $1.99. But anyway, to go back to parting out, that was the first thing I ever parted out. If you went on eBay, Amazon, anywhere you went, marketplace, even at flea markets, garage, anywhere, those dimensions were everywhere. Everyone was selling them for $2-3 a piece. $2-3 a piece. I was like, no way. I stuck them in my back room at the shop. I just, every now and then I'd look on Bricklink. They didn't touch Amazon for a couple of years at least, because no one was flipping those on Amazon for $3-4. I mean, now they're selling them on Amazon for $25-35. So there's some of them are surfacing, the last few years. But anyway, long story short, having my show in my store, I could do a whole nother video on the stuff I've done in the community, which actually organically got me to where I'm at, not knowing at the time, with the local like children's museums, the libraries, so many schools, whatnot. So anyway, I ended up giving away a couple hundred to a couple local schools because it's great marketing. I show up at their fundraiser and I set up a booth. Oh, the Brick Huts here giving away stuff. And then when I started doing my shows, I started really figuring out how to monetize these events. After the first couple of years of doing them. And, you sell an early bird ticket. There's a general admission ticket for $12. There's an early bird ticket. You can get in an hour early. Oh, and you get a Lego set. Well, you could charge $25 for these early bird tickets at a show that's $12 to get in. And so I advertised, the first 300 early birds in the door get a free Lego Dimension set. So I get these things for 99 cents, and here I am selling them basically on the back end of a $20 ticket. So anyway, there's so many ways to use and market those things. So anyway, 3-4 years later, I probably gave away 500-600 of those things, doing stuff like that, and to some schools. Then at one point, back to the part out thing on the story. One point, I think we're 3-4 years past it. It was only about a year and a half ago. I picked like 10 SKUs out and started looking on Bricklink, and sure enough, everyone's dried up on these things. After a few years of looking up, you'd see so many sellers all over with thousands. You'd even look at the parts breakdown on them. The parts were so flooded on them because people parted them out. You'd find people all over Europe with them because they'd buy thousands from people in the US at $3 a piece. They'd part them out over there. So anyway, I parted those things out, and the part out on those, I don't know, it's like an average on all the SKUs I have was probably like $32 a SKU.
Whoa.
And I think I parted out like 2,500 of them. Me and my wife, my wife helped, and that took us probably, I don't know, 400 or 500 hours. But you think about the return on that. Something, if you just break it down to just a reselling as a kit from some of them were $1.99, but average of $1.50 a piece, 2,000, $4,500, you're turning into, $50K or something. So, I parted those out. I've parted out a few other sets. In fact, I still have several bins because some of those dimension sets, when I part them out, I look at the minifigure values separate. I part out the kits on like 1,000 of them. I keep the 1,000 minifigures aside, and then I save those. I do that on certain minifigures that you can recognize have potential value, either parting out later or as just an exclusive. So I still have hundreds of these Dimensions minifigures. I think I had the original Dimensions Powerpuff Girl pack, and I think I had like 400 of those. I had parted out a long time ago, kept the figure. I put the figures on Bricklink recently, And one guy, that's how Bricklink is sometimes, one guy bought like 300 figures at like, I don't know what it was, $7 a piece or something, from an original 99-cent set that you already parted out. And so I actually have a bunch of the classic brick box sets now that I got on the Walmart clearance. I always find those things for like $20, either on the day after Black Friday or the day after Christmas. One of those 2 days at the Walmart's, usually those 1,500 piece classic boxes. I think I've got 8 or 9 left. So those are great for part outs. I mean, even on the retail, it's like a $60, $70 set usually. I mean, when they're current, you look them up on Bricklink, it's a $140 part out value. When they're current even. But if you get them for $20 and the part out's $140,
yeah, you're doing well. Tommy, that's a golden nugget for everyone to take away. Check Walmart the day after Thanksgiving and Christmas. Boxes.
Or a great one is, you get $11.99 Mando Battle Pack on the tail end of its life, and if you get 100 of those, if you're a Bricklinker, I know you guys, it's too much, takes a while to get going, but if you buy 100 of those at $11.99, take the figures out because it's close to the end of life, save the figures, so you get 100 of those, you got 400 figures that in the near future are going to be 8, 10, even if some of them are re-released, in a few years, they'll be 8, 10 a piece for the figures. Just part out the set immediately, and it pays for probably $6, $7 of that $11.99 set. So you get the set down. I mean, there's different ways to work it. But I like doing sets like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to pull up a couple of comments real quick. Okay. Andrew has asked a couple of questions, but we've already answered them. So I just wanted to highlight them real quick. We did touch on volume that Lego needs for wholesale accounts. Caleb, you mentioned it was like 10,000 a quarter or something like that they would ask for.
That's not necessarily a volume, but they're going to require you to buy a certain amount. So even if you don't have a high volume, you might be underwater buying their requirements.
Yeah. Andrew also asked about the exclusives. You already confirmed that usually you can't buy exclusives, or at least you couldn't a couple of years ago.
At a discount.
Yeah, okay. When you got disconnected, we had a Hoppy say Lego silenced you.
Yeah, that was.
What was it?
Lego silenced Caleb when you got disconnected because you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. It's actually, I was like on my phone, but I guess I wasn't live. But
Big Brick shut you down, Caleb.
That's it.
All right, so here's a good one. Take into account all of your experience. What path would you take now if you're starting again from scratch?
Well,
would you do the brick and mortar again, or would you?
Yeah, I get this all the time. In fact, a guy from Arizona just emailed me. I probably get a couple of them a month. Emails, either people found me through my website or whatnot. Hey, I found you. I'm looking at opening a store. I know I've said some of the things pertaining to different questions on your Facebook page, but I mean, don't overthink it. First and foremost, don't overthink it. Don't put a lot into it. Grow it organically and small. Don't think you have to start a business like you start a restaurant. You don't need to build out a commercial kitchen for $100,000 when just a few shelves. Start with a few shelves in a 600 square foot space. And obviously if you're going to do that, you're going to want just like a 1 year, year-to-year lease or something like that. Grow it organically. Don't put a bunch of money into it. If you plan on it in the near future, we'll make it attainable based on what you have now and what you can accumulate from now until you open it, organically, grow your inventory organically now and just roll it into opening up a shop, and if you think of it, you definitely have to have a formula where you already are familiar doing sales and stuff online. Try to figure out a formula for it where you still do online, obviously, like anybody and all of us investors and whatever you're doing, it's what do you plan on getting out of it? Some people are happy, depends too where you live. Some people I know in the Midwest, I'm originally from Minnesota, and my family over those people who are contractors are making $30,000 a year, but they're wealthy. Over here in California, if you're making $30,000 a year, you're on welfare.
Right.
So it depends where a house here is $800,000 to $1 million versus back there it's $150,000. Depends where you're at and what you plan on getting out of it.
So I have a question. When you were doing brick and mortar, how much did you rely on foot traffic into your store? And the reason why I asked this question is because there's a brick and mortar store on my way to work, and I went in there. I was poking my head around trying to be low key, and I would say it's probably maybe 600 square feet, 700 square feet. And
Smart,
and it looks like a humble setup, but I'm
it's
trying
dead always, right?
yeah. And that, but I said to myself, listen, don't let that fool you, because I said to myself, if you had the brick and mortar where you have bins of loose bricks, and let me tell you, there were like some old timers with gloves from like a local club, and they're like, we need piece 187 or something like that. And I'm like, you guys rock on. And then there's 2 employees, they're 2 kids. They got to be under 20. They're actually putting sets together. And I'm like, this is cool. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if they have the online piece, which I'm sure they do, they should be doing well. And I bought some bricks, and I said, hey, do you guys have a Bricklink store? And they said, well, we're actually starting a Bricklink store. We had a little area for birthdays, but I guess nobody wanted to have like Lego birthdays or whatever. and they said, if you see that room, that's going to become our Bricklink store. And I look at that room.
That's right there is smart.
Yeah.
It tells me whatever they were doing or whatever, but whatever he just told you, that room right there, that's what he's either pivoted or he's figured out that's what he needs to do, because there is downtimes.
Right.
And you mentioned foot traffic. I mean, it fluctuates daily. Of course, certain days of the week. Like I said, monthly, also seasonally, quarterly. Obviously, you do need foot traffic. Your weekends are your number one days, so you have to be open Saturday, Sunday. Gotcha. I mean, you can make, you can make 4,000 or 5,000 on a weekend. You know what I mean? And you can make another 3,000-4,000 on the weekdays. Me, I've tried it all, and at some point I was open 7 days a week, just money. Then I was like, I didn't want to hire anyone. For a while, I was like, I wanted my weekends. I realized quick though, I was like, whoa, no, I got to be open weekends. Monday, Tuesday, you want to be closed. The most holidays are on a Monday. Sunday is the slower the weekend days because that's a sports day. You learn all these tricks, but you do need you do rely on foot traffic. It really depends my whole formula, like I said, was if I had a Saturday, if I had a good Saturday for the whole week, that was okay, as long as I had 4 people in that week bring me stuff that I bought. So I was okay with spending more money than making in that formula. Because if I got 4 good collections came in and I spent $800 on those 4 good collections, and it's, out the back door within a couple of weeks at, $6K, then I'm actually making more. You know what I mean, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some people just want to get away from their day job, pay their bill, have their own job, really, no boss. I mean, you do get to a point, though, that's how I started out, but you get to a point, though, where you're like, when you realize the good times, you're like, you got to be a hustler, whether it's in like you guys do, whatever game you're in, you got to be a hustler. I mean, you can't start out hiring employees. That's not hustling. Do max yourself out first anything you do, you got to be a hustler. You got to go out. You got to guerrilla. Like you always say, go out and get it. You got to hustle. Whatever you're doing, you got to hustle. You can't stop. You can't slow down. Obviously, you can't buy time. We're in this for time. We're in this, we're in this to make money for ourselves so we can have more time and have freedom. But once you have those good times, though, you see how those big months or big years, you get that taste, you get the fever. You just got to remember, get that to a certain point, but have a goal. So it's like your own exit strategy in life. That's kind of where I'm at. I have a goal set to where like, man, I want to go, do this in like 10 years from now. I just want to be set. Whatever that is for any individual, they have a different thing for being set. I just want to be set. Maybe not millions of dollars, but I want to have like no bills, no mortgages, no nothing. I want to have a good chunk of money for the rest of my days. That's set. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I want to get to. I mean, I don't want to just go. And you're going to get caught up. I don't know. Everyone has their own vision of what they want to get out of it. So,
yeah. And Caleb, I want to expand on Jim's question just a little bit around foot traffic and ask you this. So from your experience, do you know if a majority of your customers that came into the store would travel to get to the store? In other words, were explicitly going there to find your store, or were they people walking by?
I actually had.
So how important is positioning of your store, basically? Is what
I had a great following that I've gathered. People would come from several hours. I mean, my store was over closer to the coast, my store was about 45 minutes north of the Golden Gate Bridge. So people would come down there. You have San Francisco, Sacramento, San Jose, Silicon Valley. You have all that, that's landmarks you guys should know, right? So you got hundreds of millions of people down there. So anyway, that's within that pull is probably, that's a 2 to 3 hour pull because it reaches all the way down, East Bay, but from San Francisco, safe to say an hour from San Francisco, from anywhere in the city to get to me. I'd get people from Sacramento, which is a good same, about 2 hours, which is closer to where I live now. I'm north of Sacramento now. Good 2-3 hour pull. However, that required so much hustle to get that. You can't just, the worst thing you could do, some more business advice also related to foot traffic. The worst thing you could do, open up a store, put a sign out front, cross your arms, put in a local radio ad or a local kids magazine, which I started and learned from the beginning. I've learned all that. And just throw a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there in your local community, and just expect your business is going to do great. Well, most businesses actually operate that way. And that's one of the reasons why, I don't know the statistic exactly, whether it's 90% of first-time businesses fail in their first couple years, because they throw a bunch of money, say, I'm going to open a business, they're in debt now, they cross their arms and expect a bunch of people to just come through and life's great. No. You got to hustle. The biggest thing for me was going to shows. I'd drive 3-4 hours. Sometimes I'd drive down to Los Angeles and do shows, conventions. Down there, I'd go to Comic-Con, San Diego. Tons of them. Toy shows. There's actually, multiple Lego conventions around here. Shows are great because those get you that far pull, and they get you the whole geek following of any toy, collectible, whatever it is. Your local community is only going to supply your moms and kids. That's all your local communities, which I got those mainly by going to schools, doing projects and fundraisers with hundreds of schools to get the kids. Get the kids hype. They pull on mom's dress. Let's go. But several hours. If you hustle, you can get people to come from several hours.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, cool. So there's another thing that I was wondering about as you were telling your story earlier, which is, obviously, and Jim asked you, like all the different channels that you're selling on and that you have sold on over the years. Now that you're doing things more online, how has your preference of channel to sell on changed? Right. So you mentioned eBay was big, a couple of years ago. Are you pivoting more Amazon now, or like what percentage would you say?
I'm still kind of figuring that out because, I mean, I closed my store March 2020, so it's been a little over a year. I started to figure out I finally figured out what my new plan, long term, and then my short terms to get me there were gonna be. In that time, I kind of went back to some accounts. I went back to Amazon. I started doing some other stuff, testing the waters. I started throwing. I threw out like 100 sets on Amazon and get a feel again. And some of them I was attached to those sets, and so when they sold, and I was like, ooh, yeah, I remember what my net is on this now, and but some of them were great. So I'm still kind of I'm in the middle, I think, right now of figuring that out. I've at one point I have, which I still have, 3 eBay stores, and I pivoted to that a long time ago because one store was, called the Brick Hut Minifigs. One store was called the Brick Hut Sets, and one store was called the Brick Hut Parts. And so that I had so many listings on those that narrowed down because they were kind of different markets of buyers. So they didn't have to sort through all these listings. And so I've actually kind of pulled those eBay accounts out. And I recently renamed a couple. I'm pivoting them around again right now. It's constant. I actually, when I moved here a little over a year ago, like I said, I had about 70 sets. And somewhere around August or September, I found your site and joined. Right around that same time, I had money and I was going to start to invest in sets again. And I found someone contacted me from the East Bay and said, hey, we're moving to another state. Somehow we knew each other. Maybe we did business before. He contacted me and said, hey, I've been an Amazon Lego seller. I do FBA only, side job. I've been doing it for probably 15 years. We sold our house. It closed. We're moving away. I've probably got, I think it was like 250 sealed sets. We went back and forth. Of course, I asked him the right questions. Said, hey, you have anything else? Do you have any used stuff? He was asking like 35,000. Anyway, I ended up buying his 250 sealed sets, long retired. And I think they had it at the time I bought them, they had a $36,000 Bricklink value, which is low. But I use Bricklink to negotiate buying when I'm buying sets. Bricklink's the number you use to negotiate buying sets because it's the low reasonable average. If I'm negotiating a buy like that, of course I'm assuming my out's going to be on Amazon for those. That's how I'm going to make that margin, that negotiation, because the Amazon on those sets was like 48. Immediately I looked them all up, spreadsheets and everything he had. So anyway, I took my truck and trailer, 3-4 hours down to the East Bay. We happened to meet at a synagogue that he managed. And the funny thing is, the back room of the synagogue he managed was his FBA business.
Oh, wow.
So I think he managed it with, volunteering his time, but it was kind of his backdoor business. Anyway, he had him laid out in the whole hall. I got it for $20,000. It was a cash deal. But I found out, and he ended up throwing in him and his kids used Lego. And it was something like, 600 pounds. It was something like 40 big totes, which to him almost didn't have a value in there. But to me, my Bricklink, I know the used value. And so I got that collection for $20,000. He was, I always tell people when they first contact me, first thing I asked, my reply always is, "Are you a realist?" When they're selling me stuff, "Are you a realist?" And then we move forward. He's like, "Yeah, no, I get it. I know you're a reseller." So anyway, around the time I joined your page, I only had 70 sets. I ended up buying 250 sealed sets. That kind of started it off. So immediately I had over 300 sets that were 2013, 2014, 15, and a few like 16 and 7. They were mainly older sets, 2013 through 15 sets. All good stuff. So it was ready to sell. It was immediately ready to sell. So I thought, this is perfect. I'm going to start selling some of these and start investing for my long term. So basically, yeah, a little off track. I think a little answered the question, but.
And have you been selling them now? Have you sold through them?
So I've listed, I think I threw like 100 sets on Amazon. It always happens with me like that. You know, not using your camel research, all those sites. I use a few of them. I use Brickset. I use Bricklink a lot, referencing. I've always used a couple sets, but not so much. I mean, you know, I look at my spreadsheet, what I bought them for, and then I'm like, here's where I want to sell them at. That's kind of what I do. So I'll throw them all in Bricklink. Bricklink, you could throw everything in your store, and that's your personal buy box. And you could throw them in there at the moon, you know, the highest price you want, and just, that's what I want to sell them for. Obviously, you could do the same thing on Amazon, but there's way more competition in there for that. So anyway, I threw like 100 sets on Amazon, and the thing is, I think within a week, like, you know, for me not selling in a while on Amazon, not so many new sets on any site, I think like, you know, I don't know, a dozen sets sold in a week. And I was kind of pissed because, like I was saying before, that kind of gave me my taste. I mean, they're all, you know, $300, $500, $700 sets. A few of them are like $800, $1,000 sets. You know, it sounds great. You could sell a dozen sets and, you know, you're like, that's $8K. That paid for almost half the whole lot I just bought. But then you look at your net, you know, I'm like, it reminded me quick that what Amazon takes. That immediately was like, shit. And I just went in there and just bumped the price on all those Amazon listings and even canceled a few.
Amazon stuff.
Since then, I kind of been balancing Amazon out. You know, I X'd a bunch. I'm like, no, you know, I can get $1,000 for this set. And, you know, it's cool to have because this set, if I just keep in my eBay store at a high price because they're $1,000 sets, it's going to bring a lot of traffic to my eBay store. People are going to be making me offers. Oh, would you consider this or would you do that? Or it's just going to create buzz. It's going to create watchers. I use some of those sets for that. And some of them I'll take, you know, I'll save and I'll say, hey, these will do great at my booth at shows. They'll bring a lot of traffic to my booth at shows. Some of them, though, are just, they're just ridiculous. Yeah, I found like 3 Ninjago X1 chargers. I was ignoring them for a long time. I looked them up. There's not a single one on Amazon. In fact, it was some old listing sitting there. And I think they're going for like $150 on Bricklink. And I'm like, let's just try it. So I threw all 3 of them on Amazon for $399. I think it was like, it was $400 or something, $399.99. Right away, one sold. And I was like, oh, I was so worried. Like, does this person know what they're getting? You know how that goes. You're like, this is just a little car. You know, it's a little $30 car with like 2 minifigs. I'm like, come on. But it went through. Everything's fine. He was happy. But that was the only person that's ever going to buy that thing. The 2 I have are still sitting on Amazon. I lowered the price to like $200. No, I mean, it's great. You never know. But I prefer now, and I'm going to go towards more of the, you know, obviously Amazon's great for, you know, when you buy 20 to 50 set range and they're all $10 to $20 sets. They're small. When you're ready to sell them, you just throw them all in there at, 40, $50 a piece. That's great for that. Little easy shippers. I'm trying to veer away from, a big $500 to the $1,000 set range on Amazon. Even though it looks like you're getting that big tag, there's so much more risk involved with shipping and scammers and whatnot. I mean, Bricklink, you might get $100 less, but you're going to pay, $80 less in fees. So it's really only a $25 difference in the end. It's so much worth that $25, $30, loss versus, it's just on a safe ride to a customer, 100%.
Yeah. And returns would be lower.
Amazon returns are lower. Huge. And, it's really all about that net. So, I mean, I don't want to have a $300,000 gross annual. You still end up sometimes getting put in a really high tax bracket. There's sweet spots if that where you want to be at.
Yeah.
If you just want to be at this certain place, if you can just pay yourself $100,000 every year, just easy, then man, that's a good spot to be in. Right. Just stay there.
Cruising. Real quick, we had a question in the Facebook group when I posted the link to this. So Billy asked me to make sure that I asked you, how has Lego reselling changed over the years in your experience, and how do you think it will change in the future? You got any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, as a product, as a company, I feel so safe with Lego. I've done a lot of other things. I know you both probably have. There's some things that are so safe. Well, Lego is probably going to be the safest one of them all as far as the changes they make. We're so able to ride with them and pivot with them. Yeah. Just the fact that they're really the only company they control their own destiny. Nobody else is involved. You can't buy stock in them. They just have absolute control over their supply chains, their materials. They have the foresight to integrate those changes in, way before and with predictions. And it's changed a lot, and it's gonna change a lot more. I do hear a lot of people always saying, sure, it's a toy. The biggest thing is you need to pay attention. You need to pay attention to what's going on, constantly research, not just the sets you're investing in, it's researching the company, the products, where they're going, materials, that it's made from, the brand, the backside of the brand, the whole adult community and the show. Just, you got to follow everything and pay close attention to, the constant changes. You got to, I just heard 2 weeks ago that the Tumbler, the UCS Tumbler, may be re-released towards the end of this year. Then within a week, I started seeing images and everything. Well, right. Yeah, I had 2 of those sitting there. I just threw them both on Bricklink, and I just dropped them to $420. They were just a few weeks ago. They were probably 5, and had high hopes for those going up even farther. But I just dump them, move on. I think the high hopes I don't even care. It doesn't really matter. I'll still make a good chunk on them. Still probably close to 200% on with Bricklink fees and PayPal. But it's just constant. You got to pay attention. That's your money.
And what's your hold time, Caleb? Are you aiming for a 2-year turnaround on a lot of stuff for your investing side of your business, or longer hold time?
I always say, and I always tell myself, that sweet spot has always been the 3 to 4 year spot for me. More so now. The past year is kind of not comparable because we had a weird bubble with this whole pandemic thing. Globally. So you got to kind of take some of that out of the equation. It created some changes. But typically where I'm at now, I want to buy I want to do a certain amount of money within a year period that I want to spend. I want to spend 50,000. I spent 50,000 last year on sets. I want to spend 50,000 this year again on sets. And that's a separate path than what the other things I'm doing. It's just I keep that as a completely separate path. This is a separate path. So it's 50,000. I spent 50,000. I'm going to spend this year. When I hit year 3 in 2022, when I hit about quarter 4 of year 3, I want to sell, like I was explaining earlier, I want to sell 25% only of my year 1 in year 3.
Yeah.
And then when I get to, and that 25%, according to my formula, should be 50,000. So I want to take that 50,000 after fees. I want to take that 50,000. That's my year 3. And then year 4 is going to fund 25% in year 4 of year 2 is going to be 50,000 to fund. So the initial 2 years, I just want to feed. The fuel is just going to be 50,000 year 1, 50,000 year 2. And then year 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is all funded. Just enough to fund 50,000 a year. So by year 8, I should have spent about 400,000 in 8 years. It's the plan anyway. I mean, it's working. I'm a year and a half in. I've done similar things, but it's a longer term. So year 8, I should have spent. Year 8, I start to exit that 100%. So stop at year 8. Well, except you can never stop. You'll always be buying some. Stop that kind of path. The year 8 through year 10, I'm going to be selling off. So hopefully 400,000 spent should get you about $1 million minus a big chunk of fees. But that's a 2-year sell-off period. So really it's hoping to get, in the last 2 years, hoping to net about $400,000 a year. That's the plan. Crazy.
Well, that definitely sounds like a good plan as far as I'm concerned. So you said something that I've thought about recently is holding on to sets a little bit longer. And there's been some discussion on the Patreon group about flipping, sets within a year, making 100%, which I think is great. For myself, I'm thinking about holding sets a little bit longer. And the number one reason for that is because I had so many sets that sold last year that I feel like should have sold this year. And I'm sure you're in the same boat. So,
year 2 and 3, you always get a ton of regrets.
Right.
Because you sold them off, you're like, yeah! And all of a sudden you hit year 3 and you're like, crap, I could have made another $150K.
Right. Well, I mean, the U.S. Capitals, I sold all my U.S. Capitals.
Yeah, you had like 100 and something of those?
I had 314, and if I would have waited...
See?
If I would have waited to sell them after July 6th, not even going to say what happened on that date, I would have made $20,000 more. If I would have just holded them onto them another month. Right?
So my whole thing with that is you're absolutely right. That's why I say 1%. It's win-win. You can't buy it all and not sell anything. You got to flip something. Whether it's your full-time job or another side job, you got to flip something to keep funding it. But if you took those 300, and sold like 75 of them, then you'd be like, yeah. And then just take the rest, 240 or whatever of them. And then in year 3, you sell like 100 of them. You make like an extra 25K. And then you're into like year 4 and you're like, you'll know by year 3. By year 3, you'll know if you just want to sell them all off at that point, or just maybe another 150, keep 100. I mean, I'm lower quantities now. If there's something I had 20 of, I was selling off some. It was a modular building. I think I had like 8 of them or something. I mean, they were at the time. I bought them at they were $150. I bought them for $125. So I was selling them off recently, usually what I do anyway is I always like to keep one. Keep one for like a long time. So I have a stack of sets. Actually, like the 70 I originally saved were all that. They're like, it's like a gold stack. You know, like one of these, one of these, one of these, one of these. And a lot of them are getting now 7, 8, 10, you know. And then after 7, 8 years, you've got this stack. And once again, you'll know if there's only going to be a couple in there that you're like, should have sold those off. The majority of them are like at 400, 500, 600%.
Well, yeah, like the architecture studios, I don't even want to talk about. Yeah. And you know, the reason why I liquidated those, I mean, I made money. It was great. But the reason why I liquidated those so quick was the first time I mortgaged a house that before the YouTube one, which was a couple years later. So, you know, I'm like, I said to myself, okay, I know, you know, when I mortgaged the house the first time, that was like 35,000. And I'm like, I know I'm going to make more than 35,000 that Q4, but since it was my first time, I was still a little bit nervous, right? And I just looked the other day, and I think architecture studios are around $500 right now.
Crazy, yeah.
Because
it's even cool, like I said, if you just had a couple of those,
right?
But in a pile of other sets that you always save one or two of.
I have one of those, and it's only because I don't know what happened when the set is brand new. There's nothing wrong with it other than the seals are broke off. So I don't know what happened, but the instructions and all that stuff. But you know, I made this video a while back where I talked about how much money I made last year, and I said to myself, well, I'm not going to be making a video on how much money I made in 2021 because I'm actually trying not to make a lot of money. I'm trying to hold on, like right now, and I've shared this with the Patreon group that that's, you know, right now I'm only in the debt management business. I'm only you know, making sure I have enough liquidity to pay off credit cards, to pay off you know, certain debts.
That's exactly that's the smartest choice.
But let me tell you, when 2022 comes,
is getting out of that cycle. It's the hardest part. I mean, you got a full-time job. I mean, this is great. I love it. I know I can do this. I know I can make a ton of money. But if I constantly do this, I'm not going to be able to get out of it. I'll make great extra money, great side income. But I spent all last year pretty much doing that because it was the year after I'd closed my store. I was just buying. And, you know, buying this property and vehicles, setting everything up. That was the goal. I mean, it literally cost me like $2,000 a month to live. I mean, I don't know what that is elsewhere, but that's low here in California. I mean, with no mortgage, no car payments, no debts, no nothing. I mean, that's huge. So I spent all last year saying, okay, I just need to make enough to pay for everything. I'm just going to start buying. I just want to stockpile assets at this point. Right. And I want to get past like 2 years, and then I could just start selling a portion of those assets to fund more assets, grow them.
Right.
Essentially, I mean, it's controlling your own 401k, essentially. It's your own stock market that you're controlling because you're pulling out just enough to self-fund it and grow it and grow it and grow it. You know, a little bit enough to survive on, pay bills, whatever, but you're growing it. So, I mean, I always try to tell people, I mean, theoretically, from my point of view, in my experience, and I think it is human nature. I mean, you can make a ton of money, and a lot of people make millions doing it. So don't get me wrong, but you know, if you invest $100,000 and then you sell it, you flip it in within a year, and you know you make 25,000. And your theory is you just always reinvest it. It doesn't get reinvested. A portion of it gets reinvested. The money it grows and then always stays. It doesn't grow enough.
Right.
It stays at that point. Whereas if you can actually take enough out, don't liquidate it all, let it grow. And a lot of people say, "Why are you letting that sit there?" You take it out, buy, reinvest. I'm like, if I had all that money and was always turning it into money, a huge portion of that money I'd be spending, because humans, we spend money. So theoretically, my money wouldn't grow as that much. I mean, I don't know. It's just humans spend money.
I'm with you, man.
So, but I think it's getting late where you're at, right? It's still light out over here.
And
Yeah, we've been running quite some time.
It's literally like dinner time now.
Yeah, I want to be respectful of your time as well. We've gone almost 2 hours, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to flash up 1 or 2 quick questions from the comments, and then we can close it out, if that's okay. So we have one from Andre here. Best 5 themes to invest. I mean, I don't think everyone has a different answer to this, but any themes that come to mind as to ones that you're a fan of?
Well, I mean, currently, from either experience or whatnot, I mean, some of them remain. I mean, the best sets I've probably done on or invested in is probably modular buildings, but that's with a much longer hold. So the word investing in is kind of tough, because I know a lot of people on here, I mean, their investing idea is flipping. So I know a lot of modulars don't do well within the first year or two. I know we all just invested in one coming out of COVID, and there's been a few flukes. I mean, best sets I've invested in were probably modular buildings, but that's a longer hold. Star Wars sets. I mean, but also times are changing those decisions. I mean, as we speak, I mean, you used to do a lot better, I think, on Star Wars sets. Still, my number one buy is just the broadest range of an item to sell. Your customer base is the broadest, but I mean, modular buildings, of course, ideas sets, but that's starting to change dramatically. Right. Used to be very, very exclusive with 1 or 2 coming out of, limited runs, but now it's just another exclusive. I mean, I still buy those sets. I mean, I'd probably have to answer it, though. Moving forward and where we're at now, too, and versus best picks and investments in the past, probably Star Wars. I mean, I felt last year it was kind of lacking as far as not what was currently out, but I don't buy what's currently out. There wasn't enough good stuff for me to buy last year. A lot of those sets I'm buying now this year because they're closer to retirement. But, when sets come out, of course, I watch them and research and follow and, whatnot. But, of course, last year's sets I wasn't buying. So last year I didn't really find a whole lot of interest in Star Wars to buy in. I started slow stacking some sets. But, yeah, probably those themes. I mean, Star Wars is probably number one.
Yep, that's great. We have another one here. What is your current ratio in dollar value? You obviously don't need to give dollar value, but ratio in terms of new versus used now in your current model. Are you much heavier new, or how's that structured?
Current model, much heavier new. I mean, I'm going into this, investing in new set model about 1.5 years in. Right now I'm like probably 10% used sets. Used product, though, has probably 10 times the margin as a new product. So, yeah, it being lower dollar amount. But, yeah, I mean, used sets right now, probably 10%. But anytime I get used product, though, I flip it. I'm one way or another, whether it's used sets, parts go on Bricklink, some parts on eBay. Used sets, 90% of my used sets will go on eBay. Just the easiest, quickest sell. Used sets on eBay.
Yeah. And then we kind of alluded to some of this stuff before when we were talking about your store, or your brick and mortar. But if you were to start a brick and mortar again, would you do new sets and try to go the distributor route, or
I would go mostly new sets. Okay. I mean, it fills a huge niche in the community. Based on that, I see a lot of the brick and mortar stores now going mainly used sets. Problem with that having a brick and mortar store is that at some point, if your ratio of used stuff gets too high, you're gonna have to hire people to do it. So that's gonna eat up your balance. That's the biggest thing I see. I mean, if you can keep your used stuff lower in your brick and mortar store, then you can handle your labor by yourself. You can handle the 40 hours a week. Should be able to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, awesome. I don't see any other questions. Do you have a favorite set or theme? You already answered that. That's Star Wars. And yeah, I think that's it for the comments. Jim, do you have
Star Wars shirt? I got to show the original. See?
Oh, hell yeah!
Got to have the Star Wars.
Jim, any last questions?
I mean, I still got like 50 questions. But
I know,
but you know, I think we're at a good stopping point. I mean, I could be wrong. I think you might be a 501(c), and that's just a whole new rabbit hole to go down to. So I'm not even going to ask that question right now.
Yes, I mean, I could briefly answer it. A really good friend of mine, and you can look him up. He's a 501(c)(3). We support each other and help each other out because we can. As a business, it's better to have a 501(c)(3) as your buddy,
right?
In a lot of ways, because it's more flexible. But he's got a company. It's called Play Well Africa. Play Well, you know, is because you can't use the word Lego, but it's a Lego nonprofit. They primarily take used product to Uganda. They do some other stuff around, but anyway, they have a website where you can donate your used Lego, and so they get. They've got a couple of drop sites with addresses on their website for the U.S. He's down in Southern California. We also have a drop spot. We also have a drop spot in Australia, which we're currently looking for someone over there to help us. So Ireland, right? Where are you at, Shane?
Yeah, I'm based on the East Coast U.S., New Jersey, but I have family in Ireland.
Oh, so, you're here. Okay, you're here now, right?
I'm here now, but I'm originally from Ireland.
We're looking for, we're looking for other drop spots. We have a friend that started one a few years ago for us, so we put the address on the website, and stuff gets sent there, and then it gets divvied up because obviously, as a nonprofit, a large portion of what they get has to be turned into some kind of revenue because everything costs money. And even a nonprofit operating, they take 3 or 4 trips to Africa with like a bunch of people every year. And some of these trips are $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 trips. So it actually all has to work. You have to be able to work with some businesses to work with different donations and help how to liquidate. That's how, unfortunately, that's the large, I mean, the Red Cross, they liquidate 90%. They have to turn into money. Every nonprofit has to do it. Yeah. Someone just commented, I live in Australia. So it's a remote area in Australia. Well, it's remote, I mean, on the other side of most of the populated areas, it's in Margaret River in Australia. So look that up and message me if there's someone in Australia there. Because we have a drop site. It's a friend's business in the back of his warehouse. That stuff piles up, and we can't. It's difficult to get off that continent. That's the problem. So if we can turn the Australia product into funds to fund the other projects, then anyway, there's non-profit stuff in the mix.
Yeah, we have other people in the group as well. A few people are commenting here, but others in the group as well from Australia. So anyone who's watching this later, reach out to Caleb.
But thank you guys. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Caleb, do you want to quickly give a quick shout out on your convention or your website or anything where people can find more information about you?
I think you guys know the Brick Hut. I mean, check me out, look it up. I mean, I'm more so now. I mean, I try to promote my show, my convention. And I know a lot of people on your page a lot of them are from Southern California, actually.
There are.
And we've talked about it, and a lot of people come up from there. I have several vendors that come up as well. So it's a Sacramento area, Roseville Convention Center. It's called Brick Palooza. Tickets are live on Eventbrite now. Go check it out. We have a Facebook page. There's a website. Check it out. Thanks.
That's awesome. I'd love to make it over there sometime. All right, Caleb, this has been fantastic.
Yeah, Caleb,
cool.
This was awesome.
I'm here. I mean, I do this full time, so anytime you want to do another one, let me know.
Yeah, I think we do need a part 2 sometime.
I mean, we just don't need to do this. You were talking about your farm. I was like, you need to build an inn and host Lego resellers and have that as another business.
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys are far away, but I mean, we come hang out on the farm. If everyone wants, we could schedule a time. Come on out. I mean, everyone could stay on the property. Plenty of room. I'm building a Western town on my property. Accommodations. We got lakes, rivers, Bay Area.
That's amazing. Breakbugs VIP retreat. Okay,
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This has been so great. I really enjoyed this. Caleb, thanks for running so long, and thanks for being so open and honest about your business. It's been amazing to hear about. Everyone who's watching, make sure you subscribe to see notifications about our next live chat, which will be 2 weeks from now. So that's it. You can close out.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. We greatly appreciate everything when it comes to liking and subscribing and commenting. Caleb, I mean, this was great. I told you I was doing jumping jacks before, and I'm going to be mulling this over in my head for the next couple of days, if not weeks. And we'll definitely. I don't want to say that we'd love to have you on again. We might have to do this tomorrow night. But yes, we'd definitely love to have you on again sometime in the very, very near future. And that's it, everybody. Thanks for watching. I'm sure a lot of liked and subscribed. Please don't forget to do that. And we'll see you next time.